All right, welcome to my project. So, for my project this semester, I decided to pick making a video game. I wouldn't say the goal for the project was to make a video game. I think the goal for the project was to learn, mainly learn. Now, I think the core thing that I was trying to learn about was multiplayer, and I think I did a pretty good job on that. Considering I made a game that worked. Um, I'll get into more detail about everything, but let's just start off with basically the last version that I have right now, the earliest version. So this is a copied version from a tutorial that I followed on the internet from this channel, and this taught me a lot about multiplayer and basic Unity because I hadn't been doing Unity for a while, so I had to get back into it. It's a good tutorial. Yeah, so I didn't I followed up there, and then I ended up, I think I copied the tutorial just for a bit, just so I had the stuff in the yeah, let's just show off the map. So he had this map going here, just a little simple kind of area to mess around in, which is great, awesome. I didn't really that wasn't he had basic guns and stuff working. Yeah, but anyway, let's go to the version that I created from the ground up after following the tutorial, creating, bug fixing, doing a lot of that stuff, because that was what I started off. I started off, now it didn't look exactly like this. Okay, anyway, so let's just go to this one. So this one is probably the most relevant, I'd say. It's the one where I did the most innovating and stuff. So if we go to the main menu and launch it from there, this one I think has, yeah, so you go into this, there's the menu, you can create game. So you're going to create a game with a room. Now, you can play, this doesn't actually do anything, but you create the room code and then you hit the create button. And this one actually has a few errors. Like, as you can see, I can move, but that's not really supposed to happen. I can go into third person, but you know, it's even still, it's not working properly. So I had another version that I for some reason can't open right now, and I did want to mention that I'm doing this a collaboration with someone else. They can open it, but I can't for some reason, which is weird. So that's unfortunate. It doesn't have a whole lot more features than what I had there, but I have a few errors, but it was getting there. I could open, like, I could get the what do you call it? I could get the, I'm trying to think. I could get the two players. We couldn't actually join the same one. That was a problem that I hadn't fixed yet. But in previous ones following more along the tutorial, I could. I got us to be able to connect in to the same game and play. And I think unfortunately that one actually got removed. I think if I go back to that one, yeah, that was part of that one we overrid because this one for some didn't actually collab correctly. So that one's gone, but that's fine. It was basically just following the tutorial anyway, so it didn't really have that much innovation. But I did get multiplayer working in that one, and I know how it works, so that's not a problem. But I did figure out how it works, and I understand all the topics. If we go into a script here, I can kind of show that off. If I go, actually no, it's this one right here, spawner, I think it is. Okay. All right, so no, it's not the spawner. No, let me close that menu. Oh yeah, of course it's the menu. Main menu. So in the main menu script, we're doing a few things here. this is where a lot of the kind of stuff happens. So we do the Photon automatically sync scene, which is basically to do with the host and the other people syncing with the same kind of scene you're in. Version control, you're connecting, and then you've got stuff like joining game, creating game, and quitting game, which this is just quitting the game. These two are just loading the two different sub menus at the beginning. Yeah, so this one has a little bit of multiplayer stuff, which is right here, and mainly the photon.connect using settings. That's the connecting to the network, which is the big part. And then we have create, which would be part where you have room options for kind of like whether it's 2 or 4 players, stuff like that. Setting the room code to the code. Photon network, that's where you're creating the room with the room code that you put in. And then you're loading the main menu. See if you hit the back button. Okay, that's simple. Now, this is on create room failed. So if the room fails, it gives you an error on created room. This is if you create the room, you're going to basically, if you're the client, master client, you're going to load this is the map in this case. If not, you're just going to not do anything because you're already going to be loaded, because that on sync scene will sync anybody else into that one if they're joining the room. Pretty simple. Yeah, so that one's that. And then the join room one is basically the same, but you've got a little bit less because you're just joining the room. So on join room failed, then join room, same deal. Actually, this is not really useful because you're always joining and never creating, so you're never really master client, so that's not really necessary. So even this doesn't actually even need to be here. Actually, yeah, no, you want the base join stuff. So this one's pretty simple actually. You just oh, sorry, I forgot about this. Here we are. So you photon.join with the room code that you type in using the that field. So I figured it out. I understand how the thing works. For some reason, the using the room code wasn't working. I've done it in the past where it's just a random room and you don't actually need a room code to join. You just join or create and it works. And I've done that before and that's worked. I just wanted to see if I could get the room code working, but it didn't seem to work this time. So yeah. I had a few other ones for menus and settings, but they kind of worked where you press escape in the game. There's quite a few bugs with them though, so I'm not really sure that off. Guess we could go over the player stuff. Yeah, player vision, I guess. So I had this system here where this isn't the modern version because this is just copied from the tutorial and I don't really understand it, so I didn't. I don't know, this is fine. Yeah, that's fine. But most of this code is just for the sake of switching between the first person and third person camera, and also locking and not locking the mouse. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Join room menu, create room. Yeah, I just covered all that. So that's basically it. This is this one kind of version. I had like 3 kind of versions. I did most of this work here. The newer version, the person I was collabing with, they did a lot of work too. They also did a lot of modeling as well, which is pretty cool. Now I'd like to show you a side project that I was working on, and this is going to be basically what my project for the second semester with physics is going to be. I'll give you a little quick overview of what is going to go on there. I just open it up again. All right, so here, not sure why that's opening again. Anyway, here, it's called shitting over it. It's it's not really the final name for the project. I just called it that because the name of the game that I'm kind of basing it off is called Getting Over It. So I was just gonna make a bad version of it, but I'll probably change that name way later or later on to something that makes sense to the game that I've created. It's just a temp name right now. Anyway, let's just open this up real fast. Okay, so this is this is a attempt, and now it's a work in progress. So there's quite a few things that I have on this one that I haven't done yet. Now let me just quickly open up the game just so I can show you what I'm trying to create and how it kind of works. This I actually put a lot of work into, and I've been doing a lot of kind of innovating, I guess you could call it. So this could be considered part of this project. I would consider it kind of part of it. It's not really on the base. It's kind of a side project, but I'm going to be covering it way more in detail, and it's going to be hopefully much more advanced for the second semester project in 20 or so weeks, which is 4 months. So I should have a lot of time to get it finalized. So this game is Getting Over It. Pretty simple concept in thinking when you're trying to recreate it. It actually has a lot of complicated stuff, but the idea is that you move your mouse. So I moved my mouse up, and this guy's holding a hammer, and left, right, up, down. So you basically the way you move your mouse, basically. Where it gets interesting is when you put it on the ground, right? Now I'm pulling down, and I pulled down a little bit left, and now I can pull up, which is actually, I'm pushing down. My mouse is going down right now, which is interesting, and I'm going up with the mouse. So you can see it's kind of inverted when you have that, and you can kind of, this is the game. You have to get over the map by doing this, and then you can do pulls and stuff like this. Now I want to mention something. You see that white thing? That's basically the mouse. But you can see that if I go here, let me just okay. So I'm just over here just to give you an example. This white thing, as you can see, actually doesn't really stay in the one place. If I go here, it kind of goes back, or if I go down a little bit, it kind of goes back, right? I go up in, I go in, it kind of goes back, right? Makes sense. So it's definitely a interesting idea. So if I were to go here, you see I didn't do anything there. It kind of kept the velocity of what I was doing. So if I go like that, let me see if I can do this again. If I go like this, and if I pull myself up, and then I go whoop, and then I go like that, it pulls me in. In that case, it wasn't that bad, but if I go like this, it can go whoop, and then you see it did that. And I didn't move my mouse at the end there. So it has some kind of it keeps me going, because that is going back. If I look at that only, it kind of goes back. So it does do a little bit of weird stuff when you're in the middle. Yeah, you can see it wants to pull up because it was like that, right? And that's what it does. I guess it's depending on if I pull, right? I go down and it kind of pulls. So I guess when you're pulling, I guess that's interesting. I didn't notice that before, but when you're pulling, the lock for the mouse kind of doesn't happen so much anymore. You can go way off the screen, and that's why I guess you get so much pull. So if you wanted to do a pull swing, you'd have to move it back to where it was if you didn't want nearly as much things. So that's actually an interesting thing that I didn't notice before. But enough of that game. Let me show you what I've been working on to try to recreate some of it. Now, I've gone through a few different prototypes, but this is the main one that I have right now, where you have, this is basically the mouse, that circle. This is going to be the hammerhead eventually, and this is going to be the body. I at a part where I had kind of working where I had them connected. I used the arrow keys to control 2 joints, but that was not realistic to the game at all, because the idea is that I'm going to have a machine with 2 joints instead of 1 hammer that you swing around. It's going to basically be the same thing. So let me play it, and right now what I have this red thing. Basically, I move my mouse and it moves. So it's basically just a virtual mouse. And how I do this, and I can change the speed by just going into here and being, sensitivity can be like 10 or something. Yeah, if I change it to 10, you get a bit more of a sensitivity. Yeah, like you can see it's moving way faster now than it was before. So let me show you, yeah, the mouse object script is the first one here. All right, so mouse object script, yeah, so what's going on here, right, is I have the sensitivity, the max distance, which is kind of supposed to be in play, but it's not. The distance but from the player and the mouse kind of thing. Anyway, so what I'm doing right here is I'm taking the mouse, the get axis, input the get axis mouse X and Y, and what that is basically just a velocity number, positive or negative, for how fast. So if I move my mouse nothing, it's going to be 0, 0. But if I move it really fast, it's going to be a fast number, a bigger number, but it's the velocity, not the position. So that's what so I take that and then I times it by sensitivity. And I make a mouse move velocity. And that's a vector 2, so it's basically just 2 floats in one object. And then I'm basically just, that's something that I'm working on. But basically I'm taking the mouse position, the mouse object position, or the mouse object velocity, and I'm setting it equal to the mouse move velocity. So it's basically always keeping track of how fast. So that's basically how I make the virtual mouse, I guess you could call it. But now I can clamp it and do whatever I want with it, because it's a game object in the game and not just the cursor, which has a lot less kind of what I can do with it. So it has a lot more restrictions. This contact point velocity is basically what I'm planning on doing, is have contact point velocity be a constant pull towards the hammerhead, or the contact point I'm calling it, kind of like in the other game, right? So it's always going to do that. Now, I did have a clamping thing going on, and this is just some other code that I was testing and it was working. This was using with add force. So this is a bit more complicated because I had to basically add on the new change, because the force, I had to make sure that basically the changes, because the force is constant. So if I add a force, it's not going to reset the force. It's going to just add more, or add, you know what I mean, or add a force in the opposite direction. So that was a bit more complicated, but I think this is a simpler method for the same thing. Basically, what I was trying to do was clamp it, so it wouldn't be able to move past a certain point. And what I was doing is just being like, okay, so I'll just set the velocity equals 0. The problem there, though, is that when I do that, it can't, like, you move it and it can't really go. Once it's set to 0, it's always going to be on the edge and always be setting to 0. So that doesn't really work. That's why I thought that if I had the velocity moving away, then it'll hit the edge, then move away, and then I can move it again. I'm not sure if in practice that will work. So even if I do implement that feature, which will be used for other stuff, I don't know if it's going to be able to be used to fix this problem. So I might have to rewrite this anyway, even though I'm not using it. So I have to rewrite it anyway. But yeah. Now that's just the basics. Like, I still have a lot to go on this, because in here I still have to make it so that this kind of follows this. Or, yeah, you get my point. And then this, when it contacts, it's going to be able to move this and interact properly, right? So it's a lot. There's a lot of work to do still. It's not nearly close to finished at all. But the problem that I was working on right now is how to calculate what velocity to put on this object relative to where this is, right? Because, like, you can't just put a velocity in a direction. Like, that doesn't work. You need the X and Y velocity set. So I need to do some math to figure that out. Anyway, that's what my side kind of figurings that I've been working on. So, yeah, anyway. Let me quickly just cover some more stuff that I've been kind of struggling through. So, overall, this whole project, I have been bug fixing a ton. Like, the amount of bug fixes that I had to do is crazy because just like multiplayer, so much bug fixing, game dev in general, you have to do so much bug fixing, and it's been crazy. I've restarted because of bugs a lot of times, and it's worked. Yeah, and right now I'm stuck on this bug where I can't even open my project, which is ridiculously stupid. So yeah, that's really annoying there. But yeah, so that's one struggle that I've been doing through, and learning through the way has definitely helped me have a better knowledge of what I'm actually doing, so I can probably bug fix it a bit more. Being able to collaborate with someone has made it a lot easier to fix bugs because they can help me with it. And just having another opinion and person to work on it with me has made it a lot easier and a much better process, I think. Collaborating is really good, I think. Also, he's been making a lot of the graphic arts and stuff like that, like modeling, which is something that he's better at than me, so I don't have to work on that, which is nice. So collaborating is good, I think. And yeah, that's my project. Hope you enjoyed.